What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Walkout Network. It's your man, Ant Walker, here with another edition of Unleash, the weekly panel discussion show. And we're going to welcome back a friend of the show. You've seen him quite a few times here, and he is always welcome on the panel. He is the MMA Soldier, Rodney James Edgar. Rodney, how you doing, my man?
Reebok paid me a lot of money to wear this hat. Said no one ever. Also, said no one ever is the knot of the 2010s. Stop it.
All right. This is the kind of show we're going to have today. Thanks, Rodney, for setting the tone. Now, we're going to also introduce the senior editor of SureDog.com. He is a jack of all trades that has mastered them all. Mr. Ben Duffy. Ben, what's going on, my man?
Well, neither the commentary nor the chicken is so spicy in the Duffy household as in the Edgar household today, but I am happy to be here nonetheless.
All right, and
all the way down there in Texas, bro. I'm out here representing the West Coast.
And of course, as always, the panel is anchored by the man with the numbers, the man with the stats and figures, and all the facts. He is the associate editor of SureDog.com, Mr. Jay Petrie. Jay, how are you doing today, brother?
I am really looking forward to what's about to happen tonight. I can tell there's something in the air, and I'm looking forward to it. I guess I'll get the stat of the week out of the way. Not as fun as the rest of it. We'll roll with it. One.
Have you ever heard the hate breed version of that? They used to do it on a sports show. I forget what the show was. You know what I'm talking about?
I think
Or it was Jamie Josta. It was, this is the stat of the week. They don't use it anymore. I think we should.
I think we should. I can reach out to a couple people and get that situated.
I'm serious. It was on a sports show, like a regular mainstream show. Dan Levitard or one of those fucking guys. I don't know.
I'm gonna do some digging now. I'm liking that.
Right, well, I guess we'll have some production elements next week on Unleash. So thanks for that one, Rodney.
Yeah, man. All right.
I can record a cover version too. I'm a metal singer as well.
Yeah. So let me drop some knowledge here. One, you guys kind of know this one, but we'll roll with it anyway. One, Amanda Nunes is the first UFC champ to defend both her belts while serving as the concurrent champion. You know, having both of the belts at the same time. Cormier and Cejudo were both champs, but they had given up the other belt before they defended the other one. So Amanda Nunes has done what all those people in that Conor guy didn't get to do. So she's really something.
Yeah, definitely. So, of course, the main event of UFC 250 will be a topic here, but let's go into the biggest topic in the mixed martial arts world right now. And we have seen a pattern. We've seen a pattern of fighters, including Conor McGregor. We've seen this anger toward the UFC, or the willingness to walk away from the sport, at least claiming to walk away from the sport if they don't get their demands met. Jorge Masvidal, John Jones, Henry Cejudo, Conor McGregor, and we've had a few other fighters kind of jump on board this bandwagon here. So, gentlemen, have we reached a turning point in the controversy that is fighter pay? Rodney, I'll begin with you.
Sure looks like it. You know, when you have the top guys that are sitting out, you know, I tell you, man, we were just talking about this before we started. Your segment, or your segment on this broadcast where you get into I'm not surprised, motherfuckers. The Henry Cejudo thing that just happened today was one of the weirdest things I've ever seen, and it just kind of dawned on me. I was like, wow, that's the move now. Apparently, that's what you do. You just you're negotiating your fights and your contracts that way. That's very bizarre. It's a strange way to do business. I'm no attorney, but luckily we have one on this panel, so maybe he can spread some more insight into that.
Yeah, Jay, can you do that, please?
Well, I'm guessing you're referring to the fact that Cejudo has said he's going to come back for more pay at a different weight class. Is that what you're talking about, or is it a different piece of news?
Yeah, real quick disclaimer, y'all. I'm still like jet lagged from covering UFC in my own town. If most of y'all know, and for y'all fans tuning in, if you don't know, I'm here in Las Vegas, and they're putting on the fights at the Apex. Sounds easy enough. It was literally the craziest fight week ever. So we could talk about that more later, but I'm just still like, my brain is still fried. But yes, I was referring to that. And then, like you said, the Masvidal thing, the whole fight week's just been crazy. That kind of overshadowed a little bit of the lead up. And then after the fight, fucking Conor, man, just stealing Amanda's. I mean, honestly, dude, I was in the trenches. I was right there, dude. And I was watching the fights, and I was talking to every fighter that came back. And when I talked to Amanda, like, Conor McGregor was the last thing on my goddamn mind. And then the next day, like, after that whole week of it was her moment to shine, bottom line up front. And then I get home, and you guys know how fight week is. By the time I turned in and I wake up the next day and I see Conor McGregor trending on like mainstream Twitter, you're not going to catch. He could have used this platform to damn promote Amanda Nunes instead of damn being an ass and trying to put the spotlight on himself, man. Like, you're retired. Don't nobody care, man. Like, just, like, first of all, you're full of shit. Second of all, why announce it, bro? Like, either fight or don't. I don't really care at this point. I like the people like Gilbert Burns that come out there and say, you know what? Fuck it. I'll whip all you motherfuckers. I'm the man. That's the person I want. That's the guy Conor used to be. And quite frankly, man, he's got all that fucking money. He's hood rich because he's fucking ghetto as shit to begin with. So, hey, God bless him, man. But, dude, seriously, man, I ain't got time, dude. Like, either get with it or don't. But I'll still drink your whiskey, though. And that's why he's not fighting. Dana White said as much, dude. He's making a killing. He's making that Diddy dirty money off of this whiskey.
Now you wonder if Masvidal is taking that same avenue because of his tequila line, and he's making a lot of money from it. But it is an interesting thing you raised about Cejudo wanting to leave. He's retired. He's vacated his belt. The UFC on the rankings now have no champion for bantamweight. Like, it's a very clear empty void where Cejudo used to be. It's an interesting negotiation tactic the UFC fighters are using as leverage, where I'm out and I'm not going to fight until you pay me more. Now, it's kind of a double-edged sword because there's an issue that we have no idea how it would shake out really if it goes through the court system, whether these fighters are employees or independent contractors, because they're independent contractors, but they can't go anywhere else because they're under contract. Like Dana said, they don't want to fight. They don't fight. And then I think it was Kevin Aioli, he laughed at saying, that's the dumbest question you've asked in regards to Masvidal. Would you let Masvidal go? I think it was.
I was laughing my ass off. Yeah. I was right there. And he got clowned by Dana.
And it's a weird thing because fighters have so little recourse and negotiating power and leverage on the UFC that they sign the contract and that's it. And that's the big argument that UFC shills, I suppose, that are speaking up and trashing on these fighters like Gray Maynard, who are talking about the little money they made, is that you signed the contract, so you know what you got yourself into. Well, yes and no, because the UFC has a tremendous amount of bargaining power in these negotiations. You say, fine, you don't sign with us. What are you going to do? You're going to go to Bellator and make $2,000 and the Mashantucket Arena in Connecticut? Good luck with that. So the UFC has these fighters over a barrel. Now, it's interesting that these big fighters are speaking out because they're the ones who can do something. 300 fighters on the roster of 550 or 575 or so could band together and, all their 12 salaries and say, we're not going to do it. And the UFC would say, whatever, we're just going to get other people. But when it starts to hurt the UFC in the wallet, the Joneses, the Masvidals, the drawing power people, that's when they take notice. So this is the time, if there were any time, that the UFC fighters would do something and say, we actually have some power here. The UFC needs us more than they need. We need them. John, I think John Jones said that. I made my bank. I don't need to fight as much as you need me to sell. So if there were a time to do something, let's get weird.
You know what? I want to bring up something that I saw on Twitter today. John Nash of Bloody Elbow, who's done absolutely excellent reporting as far as digging into some of the financial matters that the UFC previously had kept confidential. He put out some tweet where it was explaining the arc of a fighter's mindset, and a fighter like John Jones, and he used Randy Couture as an example. I think Kung Lee also he mentioned as an example. Coincidentally, fighters who are part of the antitrust suit did uncover a lot of these financials, but the mindset was you know you're starving for years on as you're trying to approach a top level. You finally get to the UFC and you're so focused on winning, you're so focused on being a better fighter that you're not thinking about the pay necessarily. Right. You're not thinking about, and you're making more money than you had before. So you're just not thinking, you're just keeping going. And then it's that point where it's like, okay, I'm going to be a company man. I'm going to do what I'm supposed to do and I'll be rewarded later. And then as you near the end of your career, you realize that reward isn't coming. So now it's time to be vocal and say something. And that's sort of the arc we're seeing right now with John Jones and Jorge Masvidal too. Now, I mean, John Jones was the youngest champion in UFC history, but a man in his now early 30s. Masvidal, longtime veteran who was a journeyman before 2019. Now we're seeing these guys realizing, okay, the end is nigh. So let me make sure I'm secure in the bag. And that's the number one objective as a prize fighter. Ben, anything else you want to add to this? I know you've definitely made some statements about fighter pay on this show, and I know you've got a lot to say.
Everyone else has really covered it. Just the thing that's unique about this moment is that there happen to be this many high-level, high-profile fighters kind of doing it at the same time. It's not a union. It's not even a movement. But if it's a coincidence, it's one we haven't seen in 25 years of this game. And the thing that the UFC has always had on its side, even against the biggest stars, is time. Because you know what? Dana can still yell in 5 years. You might not still be able to fight at the same level in 5 years. It's what beat Couture. Couture stood his ground, dug in his heels, got a few concessions, but ultimately he came back to the table because the clock was ticking on him in a way that it's not on the other side. Right now, we have a couple of guys who definitely are, I mean, they're in or past their prime, but they still have a little bit of time, and there's several of them taking a stand at once at a time that the UFC is under a bit of pressure. So maybe a little something you'll give here.
You know who's actually the most important? I'd say arguably the most important name. It's not a Conor or Masvidal or Jones. It's Sean O'Malley, because he's just a kid. He's 4 fights into his UFC tenure. He's got sky's the limit. He has negotiating power. He doesn't make a crazy amount of money. He doesn't sell tickets, but he is also making the statement.
And he's not even asking for a crazy amount of money.
Right.
He's got one fight left in his contract, and he's saying, I just want to get paid what's fair.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of the it's showing once again like the old model from Tough. You sign top talent at a bargain bin rate and the Contender Series has continued that trend. And now what happens when that guy you sign at the bottom of the barrel as far as what you pay him is now become a bona fide star. Like they have Sean O'Malley merchandise, which is a very rare thing for someone who's not even a ranked fighter and spent so much time on the shelf. So definitely something to think about here. I mean, if I know what I'm talking about, which, depending on who you ask, I'd say this is at least the beginning of something. All it really seems to take would be just a conversation between some of these fighters, that some of these top level fighters that have their grievances. Keep in mind too, John Jones and Jorge Masvidal are part of the same management team.
Yes, they are.
The Cowher brothers supervise their careers. So, I mean, if we see within particular management companies some level of solidarity amongst the fighters, this could be something bigger than the UFC is prepared to handle right now. Imagine if every fighter that Ali Abdelaziz manages at Dominance, imagine if they all said, yeah, we're trying to get paid more. How much of a devastating ripple effect would that have on the entire roster, on every future plan that's in Dana White's office right now on that whiteboard? What would that do to disrupt it?
Oh my God.
Well, that's what they need to do. They truly need to do that. And hey, you know what? I wanted to caveat on y'all's point. Everything y'all said was great, and I'm glad you brought up Sean O'Malley in Contender Series, because I was thinking the exact same thing, especially having covered the last season every single week here in Las Vegas at the new facility, and it's like these guys are they're so ecstatic, you know, their teams are so happy, and it's as if they've won the lottery, and at that time they don't realize that you really haven't, like you guys said, man, like you think that there's going to be some big pot of gold at the end of the rainbow and you're going to be making Conor McGregor money, and that's just not the case. But speaking of Sean O'Malley, yeah, I mean, he's a guy who's in the UFC video game, been in there for a long time, has quite a presence outside of fighting as well. You mentioned how he's unranked. I wonder if he will make the rankings, which come out tomorrow. I know, but I can't tell you. But I cast my ballot, and I will tell you that I put him in at number 15. So we'll see if everybody else agreed with me. We got Andreas Hale on there, Eric Cowell, several other people on the panel. I'm sure you guys know him.
Yeah, definitely will expect to see Sean O'Malley with a number next to his name after a spectacular performance against an established veteran like Eddie Wineland. Jay, you not sure about the...
I mean, not in terms of merit because of his accomplishments, but in terms of you know, he took sides against the family and spoke out of turn and said that I wanted to be treated fairly, which is an insult to Dana.
Unless you're Kevin Aioli, who he really loves, despite cursing him out furiously from the podium there. Now, another moment that I found to be particularly odd and rather awkward at the post-fight press conference for UFC 250. I don't know the young lady's name that asked the question, but I believe it was the final question proposed to Dana White before he left the podium. And it was about how pretty much every major corporation, every major sports league has issued some sort of statement related to the current social unrest, the George Floyd's unfortunate passing, about the protests, about the riots and looting and whatnot, everything associated with this version of civil unrest in response to police brutality and racial inequality. So the UFC has, aside from the one image of the RIP George Floyd image that we discussed last week, hasn't said anything. Even the NFL, which probably the worst offender out of the bunch when it comes to the sports
everything
leagues.
Comes to everything.
Yeah. Considering that it was a protest on their on their platform that initiated this initial wave of controversy that's kind of led to this moment. Now, he suddenly couldn't hear what was asked or was confused by it, and we got another typical non-answer. So fellas, I'm gonna throw this out there to you. I guess I'll start with you first, Ben. How do you think the UFC and or Dana White should address any of the social unrest or the protests going on right now in relation to Black Lives Matter?
I mean, this is something where I would rather listen than talk. So the only thing I'll throw out there is the UFC is not required to make any kind of statement on this. They're a private, entity. They're not directly incentivized for it. This isn't like the NFL taking taxpayer money to put on patriotic displays. There are only two reasons that they would say or do anything about this. One, they have an actual moral stance and feel strongly about it and want to make sure that their position is known. Or they feel that the level of unrest and the level of public discontent is such that even as a PR gesture, they need to say something so that their voice was at least counted on the right side of history. If they're going to do anything at all, I mean, make it a sincere thing. Don't bullshit us. But of course, Dana pretended not to hear that question. He is intimately close with President Trump, who is about as antithetical to the Black Lives Matter movement as anyone I can think of whose head is not covered with an actual white cone of fabric. So, I mean, what could the UFC say without pissing off like Buddy Donald. Yeah, and we're talking about someone in Dana White that was brought in to be part of his little secret junta of, business leaders a couple weeks ago. We're talking about someone who spoke on his behalf at the Republican National Convention.
Man, bro, I hate when motherfuckers be just coming up. Bro, I don't know you, guy. Why is there some dude on a Segway in front of my fucking house? Sorry.
I don't. And is that why the dog's losing the shit?
That's why the kids are like.
You got to go out there and drop kick.
Yeah, I can talk for a while if you need, so we're good.
Anyway, like, if you're gonna say something and count yourselves on the right side, then just do it. Otherwise, don't give us another like chicken shit like RIP slide for 5 seconds and move on to the next thing. Like, take a stand or don't.
Yeah, I think what bothers me is that the UFC did almost make the gesture that we wanted them to make by putting up that RIP George Floyd slide for a couple seconds and before putting up the one for the doctor. But they made that initial gesture that not quite an olive branch, because it wasn't enough to be that, but that kind of effort that they had to stop and think this is a good idea, and then have almost pulled back as a company to an extreme. And by that I mean Dana White has privately, I guess he's a representative of the UFC at all times, but on the Steve-O interview that he gave, that he broke the Shogun Hua Little Nog trilogy match, he made a dumb joke. That was his contribution to the whole movement, was that, I saw John Jones and Israel Adesanya are doing things in the community. Maybe they should have UFC fighters, have them go out there and protect the properties from looters. Like, that was it. That was what he had to offer to put out there. And it kind of said everything we needed to know what he's feeling right there. But at the same time, Duffy nailed it, that they're private organization, but that are beholden to nobody to put out a statement. But at the same time, they're a $1 billion company owned by a talent agency that happens to have most of the, some massive talent around the world. Very, very famous people are part of it. And he's a public figure. So there's almost that implied responsibility of a public figure to say something. And the silence is deafening, other than off-color comments, to not say something. I mean, when you're behind Roger Goodell, who actually, contributed to this issue and with the whole the Kaepernick situation, to actually say, yeah, wow, we really did screw up here. And then Drew Brees had his incident. For there to be nothing from the UFC speaks volumes to not only how it stands as a whole, but how it wants to show itself to its roster of fighters, to its staff, to the people that work there and then pay attention, that we don't want to say something for whatever reason. And there might be a financial reason. There might be some other reason. It might just be because, well, what do we need to say something for? Because the wrong kind of statement, especially now, can destroy you. CrossFit. You remember CrossFit? You're not going to remember CrossFit in a couple months. It's going to be dead. I don't know if you've seen that. There's been, I think it was 2 tweets. I think it was two off-color, insensitive tweets by the CEO of CrossFit have resulted in Reebok pulling its sponsorship from the CrossFit Games and everything else. Athletes and organizations are pulling out. So the wrong PR statement can destroy you as well. So the UFC has a very narrow window, and they're just going like this, it seems. So I mean, what do I know? I'm just a goof in a Hawaiian shirt. I'm not like an attorney or a political scientist or economist or a statistician, but you need to say something, right?
You know what? I don't think they really need to say something, because at this point
they are saying something by not saying something. That's the thing.
Yeah, but they've said enough before this became a movement. They said enough when they made a propaganda film praising Donald Trump.
Combatant in chief, that's correct.
Yeah, they said enough when Dana White took to the stage at the Republican National Convention to scream into the mic about his support of Donald Trump. So this isn't something I don't really need a statement from him, because I know where at least he and the people on his level stand, and I don't really want some sort of token gesture, because quite frankly, a lot of token gestures are coming from the corporate world right now. The trendy thing is to be woke, and you don't actually know anything or feel anything about any of these causes. I mean, these videos of social media influencers who probably like the scum of the earth, they're probably the lowest form of life form, are posing with Black Lives Matter signs in flowy dresses and having someone take a picture of them as they act like they're nailing a board on a broken window. This sort of surface level response is just noise that isn't necessary right now. So I don't expect the UFC to be to do anything that's necessarily morally right. I don't expect that, and I think a lot of the issues that we've expressed about the promotion have been, along moral lines. This is the same organization that was happy to welcome Greg Hardy into the fold and then promote him on a big card with Rachel Ostovich on the undercard, considering their opposing histories with domestic violence. This is the same organization that was willing to look the other way when Vitor Belfort definitely pissed hot for elevated testosterone, and they let him fight John Jones anyway. Same organization,
and they tried to suppress it too. They tried to hide it.
Yes, sure.
Exactly. So we've seen immoral behavior from this company before. So I don't expect them to do anything other than put on fights that I want to watch. I don't need to hear Dana White's moral stances about stuff, because I know where he is. This is the same guy that was equating COVID-19 to cancer because libtards. It's one of those things where I expect dumb things to come out of certain people's mouths. I expect insensitive things to come out of other people's mouths. Sometimes it's best to just shut the hell up. Sometimes it's best to just be quiet. And I'm okay with them not saying anything, because what they said in sincerity might be a lot worse than silence. So, hey, Rodney, anything you want to add to this before we move on?
Yeah. Actually, have you guys been playing like Call of Duty Warzone, for example? When you get on there, the big screen, Black Lives Matter, and
really?
it looks like my buddy. And it's like all over there, and they're shoving this virtue signal down your throat, and it's funny. A lot of people are doing it, like Ant said, and my whole shout out to the homie Coach Dean Thomas. He actually tweeted out the other day, like he's like, wow, he's like, what? He's like, when did people start caring about black folks all of a sudden? And I actually texted them and I said, hey man, I said, I always have, and I didn't even that's all I said, but he knew it was in response to the tweet, and he was like, oh, he's like, bro, I know. He's like, you're a true player. I was like, damn. D. Thomas just texted me and told me I'm a true player. We got a little bromance going on, man. That's my boy. We podcast all the time. Love that guy. But and also, yeah, but that's the way I feel. And that's a whole other conversation. But I want to go back to the way Ann opened this up. That female, I can't remember her name either. She's been there every week for a Contender Series. This past summer. I've worked with her a bunch of times, dozens of times, literally now at this point, and her name escapes me. Nice enough gal, hard worker. Occasionally has, pretty good questions that stimulate good conversation. But yeah, you talk about awkward and odd at the press conference. At first, I thought you were talking about me, because I was definitely there wearing a fucking Crown Royal mask, looking crazy as hell, talking to Dana and all these people. Anyway, you call it, when she asked that question, especially after I had just gotten done talking to Dana White, it was kind of like we were ending on like a pretty good note. I don't know if I was the last one, but when she asked that question, you could collectively sort of just feel the oxygen get sucked out of the room, because you're like,
it sounded like that.
And I was going to put that on my I'm not surprised motherfuckers part of this, but I'll do something else, because honest to God, I was like, and I'll tell you this. I don't think it was a bad question at all. I think it's a fair question. I think it should have been asked, I don't think that she did it as a gotcha, for sure. I don't think she was trying to get a soundbite or do anything. It was genuine, and she gave him an opportunity. Now, at the same time, it's a bit of a rookie mistake, in my opinion, because if you know Dana White, pitching him a question like that, and we already made the comparisons to Trump, which it sounds funny, but there's so many similarities, and they're such good friends. Like, I mean, Donald, like when they got back on the air after COVID, well, during COVID, right? When they got back on the air on their own terms ish in Jacksonville, Donald Trump's video fucking opened the show, and then they sent it. Did you guys get it in your inbox? I did. We all did.
I did.
All the media got it sent to them. Like, that's never happened. I've never had the UFC sent just an actual video package that was from a broadcast and been like, here, share this, which I guess, I mean, I did. It is the president of the United States. At the same time, it's like the parallels are just crazy. Like, imagine if you were to pitch a question like that to Donald Trump without it going through his speechwriters first. And that's the problem with Dana, man. Like, Dana doesn't give a fuck. He'll say whatever he wants. And yeah, he was trying to avoid answering that question just to tread away from, saying something stupid or that he would regret. I don't personally feel that Dana White is a racist or a hateful, bigoted individual. I don't have enough evidence to show that. Certainly people would point to tendencies or relationships with other individuals that we might have talked about here, but to me, that's anecdotal. It doesn't really mean a lot. At the end of the day, it's about somebody's character. I think he's a good guy, and I think politically, honest to God, I think Dana White is a bit of a centrist. Like, he's very apolitical. He's not really a political guy at all. And in a lot of ways, I'm the same way, but I think with him, he is in a tax bracket now to where I don't want to disrespect the guy, but I haven't forgotten where I came from. In other words, this guy is, cut from the same cloth. He's a grimy fucking white boy from Boston. You know what I'm saying? Just like I am from Dallas, Texas, but he made it and I didn't. So I guess maybe realness is part of that too, because you got to play the game. And so maybe he was just trying to, like I said, stay diplomatic because he knew he didn't have anything good that would, but again, at the same time, you can't expect his social awareness and, like I said, his just centricism, if that's even a word, like, his desire to stay pretty much apolitical. And he really only, quote unquote, supports Donald Trump because they're friends. Howard Stern, one of my biggest heroes, had the same exact deal, except he kind of cut ties with Trump once he realized how this guy was politically and what he really felt in his heart. I don't know if you guys ever heard the story. He actually asked Howard Stern to go and endorse him at that very same thing. He called him and Howard Stern was like, man, he's like, I can't do that. He's like, I'm voting for Hillary Clinton. I like Hillary Clinton and he goes, well, that doesn't fucking matter. He's like, I just need you to come out and endorse me. I don't care. And he's like, dude, I can't. And Howard Stern, as crazy as people think, he's a man of integrity. And he was like, no, I can't do that. And he actually told Jimmy Kimmel, he was like, I thought about actually going out to Donald Trump's convention and then getting on the mic, pretending like I was going to endorse him and then endorsing Hillary Clinton because I thought it'd been funny. But he's like, we've known each other for so long, I couldn't do that to him. But I kind of feel the same way. Like, I used to watch fucking The Apprentice. I used to love his interviews on Howard Stern. All they would do was talk about pussy. So you never got into politics. And then when we start to see what some of the really vicious things that Donald Trump is capable of doing and saying and feeling, it makes you just feel all icky inside. That's the best way I could describe it. I don't know. It makes you feel that something's off, man. Something ain't right. The shit ain't right, man. I don't want to get too political here, but goddamn, kids in cages and all this shit. What are we talking about here? We're talking about making everything politicized, even when it comes to human issues, which nobody could fucking disagree with the disadvantaged if they were in that fucking position. You know what I'm saying? But they don't hear me anyway. I'm just saying, like, for people in his position, I don't expect them to even understand. So I don't expect a statement from the UFC, although it would be appropriate, but I'm with Ant, like, if it's not going to be sincere, And let's be honest, a lot of these corporations are doing it to fucking pander. And it's like, dude, shut the fuck up. Like, just shut up. You're doing it because that composes a lot of your audience. A lot of your audience is minorities, people who fucking pay. Like I said, Xbox. I mean, everybody plays fucking Xbox, right? So they're like, this is a sizable portion of our audience. We're going to fucking pander. What are you actually going to do, though? Put your money where your mouth is, Microsoft. Y'all got more motherfucking money than anybody in the goddamn world. You got more money than God. Let me see you put some money into some of those communities. That's what I want to see. I don't care about your fucking virtue signal, because I've been living this shit for real, living it for 39 goddamn years, man. I don't need the virtue signal. You know what I'm saying? I know who the fuck I am. People know who the fuck I am. So, sorry, man. It was a weird moment, but I didn't fault Dana or the reporter, but I definitely felt like I was like, I don't know what you expected to happen here, but all we created was an awkward moment, and anybody else in here knew that, and that's why we kind of just avoided it. And again, like I said, I'm not looking for them to make some disingenuous statement. Just, be who you are. That's what I want everybody to be.
It almost feels like one of those moments where you have to softball it or you have to go for the attack, and it's sort of, you can't approach that completely neutral in a neutral fashion in that moment, in my opinion. But what do I know? I haven't covered an event myself in some months, so I'm out of the game right now. All right, gentlemen. So let's actually talk about people getting punched in the face for money, and that is what initially brought us together here. People getting punched in the face for money. Felicia Spencer definitely got punched in the face quite a bit. For her bit of change there. Amanda Nunes absolutely destroyed her in every way, shape, and form in the main event of UFC 250. So now it looks like she's cleaned out the bantamweight division. Yes, there are a couple of contenders that might be rising, but no one clear cut at the moment. She's cleared out the featherweight division because there was only two people there anyway. So now, what's next for Amanda Nunes? What should we do with her next? Ben, I'll start with you.
She's making noise about wanting some time away from the game. Obviously, Nina Ansaroff is about to have a baby. It is their baby. If featherweight is going to continue at all, it needs a break anyway. There are a grand total of 5 women who have fought in the UFC featherweight division since the beginning of 2019. Nunes, Megan Anderson, Cyborg, who's gone, Zara Ferran dos Santos, Felicia Spencer, and Norma Dumont. That's it. We need something else. And if we want to continue having featherweight challengers, they're either going to have to go the Cyborg route, where it's really just bantamweights, or they're going to need to give it some time off. I mean, the only woman I really want to see fight Nunes at 145 right now is actually Macy Chiasson. I know that she lost a fight just 2 fights ago, but she at least is an actual physical featherweight. She is like a big-bodied woman with like some muscle on her frame, and presents different challenges, has a different skill set than Spencer did. But even that, I mean, given what we've seen from the two women, it'd be a squash match. I'm fine with Nunes taking a year or two away. With a year or two away, we could actually bring in some featherweights, have them fight each other, and maybe get somebody with a couple fights, a couple wins strung together where we could justify, okay, hey, there's a little bit of interest here. We want to see this woman fight Nunes.
All right. Jay, yeah, I see you just itching to say something, man.
It's just, it's almost comical to me. Because you run down the names that she not only hasn't knocked out or dominated, there aren't many, and you say them or read them and go, really? I don't know. Is that what's next? Because you never want to discredit the fighter, especially when they're doing what they can in the division to move up the ladder. Aspen Ladd is fighting Sarah McMahon in a month. So maybe if Aspen Ladd wins, she'll be on a 2-fight win streak. So that'll be something. A lot of questions there in my voice there. Irene Aldana, now she would have been an interesting option because she smoked Caitlin Vieira, and I think it was December. But she's fighting Holly Holm in August, and to headline the August 1st fight night card. So she's off the table for several months. Nunes is dealing with a potential leg injury. I saw that she has a one of those 180 days unless cleared suspensions for a broken leg. So if that actually were the case, then she may be on the shelf for a little while, which could be good for her to spend time with the family and whatnot. I said it last week, and I believe it more now than I did last week, that the UFC is going to shoehorn Megan Anderson into her 2-fight win streak over Zarfan dos Santos and Norman Dumont into a title shot for 145 to keep that going. Because unless they bring somebody else into the division, I mean, what are they going to do? Bring up Jermaine Durandamy? Because let's see that one again. That'll be fun, right, guys? But at the same time, we can't give up and despair because the champion has destroyed the division, because, the champion has to keep defending. If they want to defend, then the UFC needs to provide contenders. That's just how it works. It's how it's always worked. Anderson Silva may not have, some of the Anderson Silva's title defenses, you go, ooh, I don't know. And he even had a little fun at light heavyweight to kind of let them build up. GSP took on all comers. I mean, Mighty Mouse fought pretty much every flyweight that had a win streak. I mean, he fought One Punch Man, Chris Carriasso, so they were burning it all the way to get him going. I mean, honestly, if Nunes is going to keep fighting, let's keep it rolling. I want to see how far we can take this. She's on an 11-fight win streak, which is more than any female fighter in UFC history. Let's get weird. Let's go for that title defense streak. Just keep going.
All right, so Rodney, I'm gonna throw this question at you. So do you agree with me, or are you wrong? Should the UFC just put the brakes on Amanda Nunes right now, let her chill, spend the time with the family, welcome in the new baby, and let both the bantamweight and so-called featherweight divisions play out, and then we'll see if anything emerges that's worthy of her time?
Yeah, that's exactly right. Because as Jay said and Dana said as well, and compared to Anderson Silva and GSP, like how there's always a contender, but the only alternative perspective I would offer you guys for that is that the lack of depth is severe in featherweight. I mean, it's not that the UFC needs to provide them with talent or with contenders. I mean, the world, they just don't exist. We're gonna have to go to like Siberia and fucking just find some big old husky broads, just teach them how to fight. Like, they just don't exist. So short of the beautiful Gina Carano or Ronda Rousey coming back, and we know what would happen. Let's be honest. Like, Gina would probably fare better than Ronda, to be honest. I seen her fucking scrapping with the Mandalorian. You know what I'm saying? I was over there sipping my whiskey with Baby Yoda, sipping his tea. I think because she's bigger, but in all seriousness, we know that neither one of those girls has an incentive to try to come back and get punched in the face when they're making way fucking more money doing way, way bigger things. And I think Ronda's walking away from the spotlight altogether. So good on her. But, in reality, if those girls did come back, those are still marquee matchups because you can reach so much of the crossover audience where Ronda is a household name, but they don't necessarily give a shit about MMA. So that could happen. But I definitely don't think it will because, like I said, you saw the murderous fucking rampage that Amanda Nunes went on Ronda's face the first time. Nobody's going to fucking take money to get that happen, to get that again. So no, last thing I wanted to say though is this, man. No, when I heard her, when she came back, she was ecstatic, man. She was glowing. She was so happy, about what she accomplished. And I was so happy for her, man, quite frankly, to be able to sit there and witness greatness like this, as we've all been doing with her career since she really kind of went from this gal that, well, she doesn't have a gas tank to, oh, holy shit, she is definitely the greatest. There's no question. Like, even the people who we thought might give her a problem, she murdered. And then Felicia Spencer, I feel like she could have taken her out at any time during that fight. I honestly do. And I didn't want to insult Amanda, so I didn't ask her at the presser because she is a lioness. She's nice, but she will rip your fucking head off. She's done it to me before. But no, in all seriousness, I was going to ask her, like, did you just want to just beat her down for 25 minutes? Because I feel like you could have literally finished her anytime you wanted.
She did
to.
in the post-fight interview. She did say she wanted to go 25 minutes. Like that was very intense.
She did mention that a couple times. Yeah,
yeah.
She didn't have to. You know, it wasn't.
Like how easy were those takedowns? It was just like just for fun, essentially. Like she just ripped her leg away and it's I just want to see if I can do it. All right, let her stand back up, beat her some more. I'll just rip her leg away. Let's see if I can do it. Like it was essentially a complete clinic. She did anything she wanted in there. And it makes you wonder, like, who can beat this version of Amanda Nunes, who, in my opinion, perhaps has had one of the better evolutions from a technical standpoint than almost anyone else I can think of in the history of the sport.
She looks so good. I told her, like, physically, like in there, she's fighting at 45, but looked, amazing. Looked leaner, faster. Just everything was so precise. It was insane. Go ahead, sir. I'm sorry.
Oh, no, you're good. You're good. So, after seeing what she was able to do to Felicia Spencer, the other question now remains, should Felicia Spencer's corner have put an end to this? She took a fair amount of punishment through the duration of the 25 minutes. Amazingly, there were only 2 judges that had one round scored as 10-8. I don't know where they do math. I don't know how the numbers added up to that, but to only have one 10-8 round scored and 2 out of 3 judges saw that, but that one just saw 0 10-8 rounds, absolutely nuts to me. But anyway, fellas, why are we having this conversation again about corner stoppages, and should Felicia Spencer be included in that conversation?
Yeah, pitch it to me, man. Pitch it to me. I got something real quick on that. So, yeah, first of all, I saw you and Matt and James Lynch, Nick Baldwin, all you guys, man, just kept popping up on the feed and on your Twitter. I'm like, God, you motherfuckers, man. Speaking of damn needing a Twitter writer, maybe I had to hire one of y'all guys, man. I had some profound shit too, though, man. And one of the things I said was, at the end of the 4th round, I was like, because Daniel Cormier was saying it too, and he gets kind of loud and people hear him. So he's already been accused of like cornering people a couple times, but he yells at the refs too, and I think that's good. But he's a passionate guy. Rogan does the same thing, but I guess when there's a crowd, they probably can't hear him. I don't know if that influences the ref or not. All I'm saying is, I felt the exact same way as DC. Like, it was like, dude, there's no reason for this. And then you even heard DC mention this. The corner of Felicia Spencer told her when she's completely concussed, just out of it. Probably, nothing left in the tank whatsoever. And he's sitting there, hey, we got to stick to the game plan. DC's like, what are you talking about, guy? The game plan hasn't worked for damn 20 minutes. You had 4 rounds. You're not going to be able to do it in 1 round. Like, at that point, like, I hate it when you see fighters that like stick up for him. Who was that, man? I can't remember who did that, but there was a fighter that was like a female. Was it Rocky? I want to say Pennington a while back. A couple years ago.
Yeah, after Nunes destroyed her at was it UFC 208 or something like that?
Yeah, and then defending the corner, it's like, dude, just swallow your fucking pride, man. No one is going to think any less of you, especially if the coach makes the goddamn decision. But quit trying to. Dude, are you kidding me? Like you, it's like some of these people have no awareness of health. Like, and then she had that hematoma, and then, like I said, at the end of that last round, it's like Amanda was toying with her. She could have finished her. I felt like she was just slow burning it just to torture her, to show how dominant that she is. That's what lions do. King of the fucking jungle.
Yeah,
they devour prey.
We seem to be having this conversation a lot lately. And I don't know if that's because there's not as much to talk about, but there are a lot fewer fights. And yet we keep circling back to this topic. And for good reason. Because this is a prime example of, hey, coach, hey, cornerman, have you been watching the same thing we've been watching? Have you noticed that she landed 1 strike in the 1st round and it didn't get much better? She landed a few more, but at the result of her face getting splattered. There's no 2 ways about it. And it isn't disrespectful to say that Felicia Spencer got wrecked. It was clear to anybody that was watching, it's getting harder and harder to watch. Like, oh, this is getting to that point. I think at the end of the 4th round, I think even I tweeted like throw the damn towel because of it's not pleasant because at that moment in the fight and at the beginning of round 5, Spencer doesn't have the one hitter quitter power, so she doesn't have the equalizer. She doesn't have the takedown ability to get Nunes down because Nunes at the point stuffed all of her takedowns and reversed half of them and was just having fun. So her best hope was a submission Hail Mary, which if you can't get the fight anywhere, there is no such thing. Like there's not even a grappler's chance, which I don't think is a real thing anymore. I mean, honest and truly, it's one of the most one-sided bouts I've ever seen covering the sport. Even Mari Yamasaki was probably watching like, damn. Like I scored the fight for SureDog.com a 50-41. I don't think I was being too liberal with my 10-8s. I gave Nunes a 10-8 round in the first, third, fourth, and fifth. I think the second round was the only one where I thought, well, Nunes won that round, and she didn't smear her around the cage, but I'll give her a 10-9. Like there was, you sometimes ask, was there a minute the fighter was in the fight? I mean, Felicia Spencer is as tough as you can imagine because at the beginning of the 5th round, she said to the referee, I'm good to go. The doctor came in and checked in on her and said, can you see, are you okay? She's like, no, I'm good. I mean, 3 of the 5 rounds. 3 of the 5 rounds, Felicia Spencer landed less than 10 significant strikes in those rounds. You can't, if you're not hitting your opponent, you're not grappling your opponent, you're not doing anything to your opponent, what's the point? What's the point? Because some people need to live and fight another day. And my last thought, and it's something I'm going to say and stand on the table and shout until they finally do something about it. It should not be a foul for corners to stop the fight during a round. It is currently a foul in the unified rules, and there can be penalties for a corner throwing in the towel. So that should be eradicated. There's no point to that.
That's one of the dumbest rules ever written down in a book. That is beyond stupid. But Ben, I think we'll wrap up this topic with this question, Ben. Was that the most dominant title defense that you can think of?
It might be. I mean, in terms of how much punishment was dealt by the winner, in terms of how one way the traffic was, like how little the challenger or the loser had to offer, it might be. I mean, if I thought about it for another minute, I might be able to think of ones where there was more damage done. But in terms of this was never in suspense at any moment, yeah, I mean, this was just a complete shutout.
I can think of the finishes, of course, and that style of dominance. I can think of a dominant title change. Primarily, I'm thinking of when Tyron Woodley lost to Kamaru Usman. That was probably the most dominant title change. At least it went to decision. Mm-hmm. But a 5-round decision, a successful title defense, that's probably the most one-sided beating I've seen in that scenario. Off the top of my head, I guess. But let's go ahead and keep it trucking because we are starting to go up against the clock here a tad bit. Now, we'll go in with our swing or miss portion of the show. Cody Garbrandt, Aljamain Sterling, Sean O'Malley, all impressive finishes, and just a showcase for the bantamweight division. Is this the 135-pounders? Are they now as exciting, as interesting that they've ever been? Jay, I will begin with you on this one. Swing or miss?
I think we were just talking about pay issues and Henry Cejudo surrendering his belt. Him retiring and giving up his one or whatever he did and surrendering his 135-pound title may have been the best thing for the division right now because it breathed life into it. It kind of truncated the end of the whole TJ debacle going down, coming back in weight. But this champ thing has screwed up basically every division it's been a part of, besides Amanda Nunes, who is defending her titles. I mean, it's one of those divisions where I can't wait to see what's going to happen. Like an unranked fight is an interesting one. Like, I don't know, Sean O'Malley versus Eddie Wineland was a must-see matchup, and they're not ranked. They might be. I mean, Sean O'Malley may be soon, but I look at the top 10 in the division, and I think of all the fun matchups that can happen. That it used to be like that for lightweight. We used to see Ferguson and Poirier and name, but it has progressed. It has slowed to a crawl. And then Jose Aldo kind of nosed his way into bantamweight. He's the weak link in bantamweight right now. I mean, we have a terrific top 5. Marlon Moraes, Aljo Sterling, Peter Yan, Cody Garbrandt, and Corey Sandhagen are the top 5. You match any of those fighters up against each other, and it's going to be fun. Yeah, I can't think of a bad matchup, an unexciting time. And what they should do is, while they're figuring that out, make Jose Aldo fight Dominic Cruz, push him over there, deal with that otherwise, and let Aljo do his thing.
I can't disagree with that last bit at all. So the way you describe the bantamweight division, it sounds a lot like the way we normally talk about 155. So I'm going to go a little bit further with the remaining portion of the swing or miss. Is the bantamweight division the most exciting in the UFC right now?
I already said my piece, so it's Baby Yoda's turn.
Be jealous. Look what just came in the mail. Jealous. It's almost like life size. It's like the actual size of.
That would be about Baby Yoda.
I can't believe, dude. Every TV show is out of production right now. So everything we love that we're waiting to come back, we're going to be waiting so much longer. And I don't know if I told you all this. I might have. It was before 248, the week before Fight Week. Actually, it was actually on Fight Week. I was in a freaking pilot for the show that's going to be on HBO, and it was the pilot episode. So they're literally just getting started on filming. And I'm like, damn, I have no idea when that shit's coming out. But anyway, what were we talking about? MMA?
I think maybe for me, then I guess, since everyone doesn't know what to say, I think it's probably a question of bantamweight versus featherweight right now. I think those are the two divisions where the top 10s are so stacked that number 10 could beat number 2, and it'd be a fight of the night. You know, Shane Burgos, here we go, featherweight. Shane Burgos is number 10. Fighting Brian Ortega, that'd probably be a fun fight. You know, you just look at the potential for everything to go on. Calvin Kattar versus Chan Sung Chung. You know, just put them together and you have that kind of thing. I think bantamweight and featherweight are the top 2 in the company right now.
You know what? I'll still say lightweight is the best, but the thing is that lightweight is like flooded with a bunch of controversy. That's the problem with lightweight, that you have the presence of Conor McGregor or absence of Conor McGregor. You've got Khabib, his unfortunate family situation right now. You've got whatever sort of muck and mire to figure out what
you got an interim title out there too.
Right. So you've got things going on that take away from just purely enjoying the fighters and the potential matchups. But bantamweight, featherweight just don't have those distractions right now. And I would put welterweight more toward the lightweight discussion in this, because they have their own controversies at the top of that division that seem to be no real resolution to any of those issues at present time. So I guess we'll conclude this topic on a quick swing or miss. We haven't heard from Ben, correct? Yeah. On this one? All right, Ben. Right. So swing or miss, is bantamweight your number 1 division, or and is it as exciting as it's ever been?
It's definitely more exciting than it's ever been. I mean, a year ago, I would have said the most exciting time was right when it crossed over to the UFC, when Cruz came over as the inaugural champ. We were waiting to see what would happen when Hayden Barral came back. It was an exciting time. Now it's the most exciting time. And yeah, for me, it's the most exciting division. Like, in terms of, I think across the 12, I think it is UFC divisions, this is the one where I'm most excited to see what happens over the next year. One thing I would add real quick is that Jay is right that this became interesting when Cejudo bailed, but it's not like the same way that welterweight became really interesting right after George St. Pierre retired, because that was addition by subtraction, because we knew what St. Pierre's title defenses tended to look like. Here, I would love Cejudo to jump right back into the mix. You know, whether it's an immediate title shot or an immediate number 1 contenders fight, as this thing is sorting itself out, he's welcome back anytime, because his fights have been great fights. So it's not like, okay, we're fine with GSP taking a couple of years off because now we're getting just all these dynamite fights and these guys finally getting their time in the sun. It's a party The water's fine. Come back anytime, Henry.
All right.
Yeah, I think that the championship, that whole mess just slowed it down. And I think that issue I took with it is that, I mean, let's face it, championship fights do matter. They matter to fans. They matter to us covering them. That, if there's belt on the line, there's added stakes to the fight. And so I think when there's a title fight every 9 months, every year, every 16 months, it's like, all right, let's get on with the show.
All right. So now we can't do a show in this day and age without the dreaded words COVID-19. And of course, that being the crux of all the issues regarding regulation and putting on live sports right now. UFC had a little bit of a scare this weekend. One of Ian Heinich's cornermen tested positive for the coronavirus. Then come to find out that he was actually okay. It was a false positive. In the meantime, Ian Heinisch had been pulled from the card. Then he got put back on. So, I mean, do we think this is a success for the UFC's COVID-19 protocols?
I'll jump in because I only have a very short question. How do we in the UFC know that Ian Heinisch, maybe Rodney can answer this. How does the UFC know that Heinisch's corner's first test was a false positive and not that the second was a false negative? How do we know that the first test was the wrong one if they're issuing the same tests and doing the same thing, which have a very similar fail rate? I've looked into it. How is he cleared?
We don't know. I just know that he mentioned it at the post-fight press conference, and that he said that the test result ended up being, it was an inconclusive one, so it wasn't a false positive at all. But those are his words, so I really don't. There's no way to verify that. This was all just kind of, the assembly line of the post-fight scrums, as you guys know. But I asked Neil Magny why he wasn't at media day and why he was the last to the scale on the weigh-ins on Friday, because I did go to those as well, and he said they had a similar situation. So I don't know if you guys caught that on the post-fight press conference. Neil Magny actually almost got pulled from the card as well, and we didn't know about it. And I just happened to ask him, like, well, did you have a tough weight cut? Because you look great. Why did you show up last to the weigh-ins and you were missing from media day? So that was the reason. I will say this. I'm getting ready to drop an article about this week, though, talking about their standards. I think they're going above and beyond. I think they're probably actually being, overcautious with their precautions, at least from the media side. They keep us completely sequestered from the fighters for the most part. I mean, if you guys have been participating on media day, it's very not traditional. It's very similar to what we're doing now. Not the traditional, face-to-face stuff that we're used to, which in a way it's kind of better because, let's be honest, man, those days suck. Those media days where you're running around with a tripod and you're it's crowded full of all these people, like managers who don't even belong in there. Like, I hate those freaking men. Like, Ali is the only one I can freaking even tolerate anymore. I've fallen out with Jason House, so fuck him too. You know what I'm saying? Fuck all those bastards, man. I hate them. But anyway, I got off topic. So check this out. So I found out. So I was doing the media day remotely from right here in Starfade Studios in fabulous Las Vegas. I got notified Thursday, hey, congratulations. Boom, boom, boom. You got, approved for your credentials for this event. If you want to go to the weigh-ins, the weigh-ins obviously are closed to the public. If you want to go to the weigh-ins, you have to go get a COVID test before 4 p.m. So I fucking moved a bunch of shit around. I got somebody to take care of the kids. I went and got a COVID test. That's the first time I've ever been tested for COVID. So in a way, I could say, hey, I could thank the UFC for that. And I did. I told Dana White as much. I was like, man, from my perspective, I know people are being critical, but I can tell you, like, the way other businesses are running right now and versus what we're doing, it's probably above and beyond. Like, everybody's completely at separate tables. If you're not wearing a mask at all times, they'll throw you off the premises. There's signs everywhere. They rented out an entire hotel, the fighter hotel that they use for Contender Series, because it's right around the corner from the Apex, and they rented the whole thing out. So after you get COVID tested, you can leave, and then if you're negative, you come back to the weigh-ins the next day. Saturday morning, this is a motherfucker, because y'all know how late those nights run. You have to report to the hotel at like 7 a.m. to get another COVID test, and then you cannot leave. So you have to bring everything. You have to bring food because they don't really have anything to eat there, because it's all privatized. It's closed to the public, so it's just a regular hotel. They got apples and bananas and shit. But anyway, they put you in a hotel room, and you gotta wait there for 6 hours in quarantine. And in that hotel, like literally every room is just like a fighter, a coach, a person from the media in every single room. It's weird. And then you have to wait there. You have to all get on the shuttle together, media that is. And then you have to go to the venue on the shuttle. You cannot drive your own vehicle, even if you're local. Then once you get there, like I said, social distancing. They have all the tables in the back, the media tent, all separate, all the media scrums. They don't do actual scrums. You're sitting at your table, and everyone has a microphone. So you don't have to even call for the microphone during the interviews with Dana White. It's the same thing. So in that respect, I got 2 COVID tests, and I saw the way that they were operating. I saw it from behind the scenes. And for me, I have no criticisms at all. I think they're doing a good job.
Are you saying that because you're under contract, Rodney?
Yes. Fuck yeah, I'm a company guy. I don't want Dana White blacklisting me, man. Fuck that shit. No. I told him right to his face. I was like, dude, because that's not my style. I was like, I'm not just telling you this just because you're in front of me, man. I wanted you to hear it because I know you've been frustrated with a lot of the media who have been critical and stuff like that. But I could tell you that I'm seeing a lot of things that they're not seeing and that the general public is definitely not seeing behind the scenes. And my wife's a physician, so I know what the fucking standards are, like to a T, like what we should be doing. And they're doing a good job. And yeah, it's not gonna be perfect. I mean, you had Jacare test positive, they pulled him, and hey, that's what you're supposed to do, right? But it's a dangerous fucking sport. Felicia Spencer got way worse than I bet she wished she had the coronavirus.
Yeah, I mean, I'll say it's definitely an improvement over the Jacare situation where he was allowed to stay on the card despite them knowing this was a possibility, and his so-called quarantining clearly wasn't taking place via Fabricio Verdum's Instagram. So we saw something toward progress, and I know you're seeing it behind the scenes and vouching for it. So I'll take you at your word, gentlemen. Any last thoughts before we move along to another portion of the show? All right, sounds good. So of course that means it's time for the best titled segment in all of media history. That is, I'm Not Surprised, Mr. Falcons. And this is where we get to share something about the combat sports world that surprised us the most or didn't surprise us, however we choose to interpret that. So, of course, we've got UFC 250 to talk about with all the pre-fight material, the post-fight material, and the fights themselves. And, of course, combat sports is always a crazy world, so I'm sure something else happened. Ben, I'm going to start with you. What is your I'm Not Surprised, Mr. Falcons moment this week?
I mean, there are a lot of things I could talk about because on a weekend where I think I went 3-9 on my picks, clearly I was surprised a lot by what happened in the cage. But I'm going to go with sort of a little more of a side thing. The Chase Hooper versus Alex Caceres fight. Caceres looked great. Great moment for him. I loved his really self-aware and sincere talk afterwards where he's like, I know I'm seen as a gatekeeper, but watch me. I'm just getting 1% better every time. And before you know, I might be the contender. I love that. It was really interesting to hear the kind of narrative that the booth was pushing about Chase Hooper. And I understand that it's their literal job to sell me the product that I'm watching. It's their job to make it seem exciting. If some guy's losing, they need to convince me that he could come back and win at any time. Otherwise, why am I even watching this? But the extent to which they were kind of trying to sell Chase Hooper, this can go down to the ground at any moment and it's over like that. Like Alex Caceres asked for a fight with Cron Gracie. Do you think he's scared to go to the ground with Chase Hooper? And sure enough, when they were on the ground, Caceres did not look the least bit concerned or panicked. He handled himself well on the ground, handled himself well on the feet. It was just interesting the level to which they were pushing Hooper. And I know that he has hair like Sean O'Malley, and so maybe they're thinking that he also, might be the next huge thing. But tap the brakes just a little bit. He's just barely out of his teens. We don't even know right now whether he is the next Conor McGregor or he is featherweight Mickey Gall, like a guy who has some nifty stuff on the ground, but is kind of borderline UFC material. It's not great for him. Just like saying that Ronda Rousey was a once in human history fighter was not the best thing for her to hear. It did her no favors. It did the fans no favors. It did their own credibility no favors. I was unsurprised, Mr. Falcons, to hear Chase Hooper getting some of that same treatment, and I hope he does not take it to heart.
All right, Rodney, what is your I'm not surprised, Mr. Falcons moment?
Well, I already talked about Uncle Dana with his non-answer to a very important question, a controversial question, or whatever you want to call it. And I also mentioned that I wasn't surprised that Amanda Nunes chewed through her prey like the lioness that she is. I'm going to go ahead and take the path of least resistance here, though. And I go ahead and side with Mr. Duffy on that Chase Hooper thing, but kind of take a bit of a different angle. Not insofar as that I'm surprised that they're trying to push him or that I have an issue with that or whatever. I mean, I guess I feel the same way you do. That doesn't surprise me that they would try to do that, just because there's a lot of interesting facts. Like you said, there's the parallels, the kind of inside jokes about Ben Askren and Sean O'Malley. The skills aren't the same, though, so that doesn't really work. And then there's also the fact that he's super young, which is cool because, his fight with David Tamer, he was in trouble early, too, and he freaking beat that guy. Like, that was very impressive. That being said, Alex Caceres is not the same Bruce Leroy that everybody that jobber that everybody has come to know and love, that guy that he is self-aware that he was considered a gatekeeper. I asked him in the post-fight, I said, look, I was at your fight in San Antonio. I saw you beat Stephen Ocho Peterson. And it was a close fight, but that's still Stephen Ocho Peterson. And MMA math be damned. Chase Hooper ain't no Ocho Peterson, period. And yes, Alex Caceres is not a very good grappler, but his grappling is underrated and his takedown defense is underrated and it's gotten a lot better. His striking has gotten a lot better. His fight IQ, all of these things. And as you guys mentioned, he didn't look lost in the jiu-jitsu. And I knew that he wouldn't because the way that he was able to fucking handle Ocho Peterson. Like I said, it was a close win. But remember, he had a broken hand off the first punch. And then he defended that choke, which, should have put him unconscious, quite frankly, from Stephen Peterson in round one of their fight. And then he went on to persevere and win that fight by decision. So I am not surprised that Bruce Leroy beat Chase Hooper, and I would not be surprised if we start to see him beat people that you don't think he should be able to beat.
All right, good one there. Jay, what is your I'm not surprised Mr. Falcons moment this week?
So the preliminary portion of the card was headlined by a featherweight fight with Chase Hooper and I'm kidding. So you might have heard, if you were listening to the UFC 250 broadcast, that an anonymous bettor put down $1 million for Amanda Nunes at about -600 to win the fight. And she won, and he made about $160,000. So, okay, we've seen big money come in on fights before, Conor and other title fights and on and on and on. And despite all that, the biggest shocker of the story is that this is, according to all the metrics I've read and the research I've done, this is the first $1 million bet in a UFC fight straight up. No one went into a Conor fight and went, I'm going to bet $1 million on Conor. Never happened. Never happened to any fight in UFC history. Now that's what, 5,600, and it's a lot. It's a lot of fights that have happened. And this is the first fight ever where somebody went, I'm going to put $1 million on this. There have been fights that generate a lot of money. Somebody will put $100,000 on Conor, $150 on the prop bet for Conor by knockout. So people will put their bets in certain ways, but a straight up line of $1 million, that's not the first fight that I thought would do this, with Nunes versus Spencer. So I am very surprised, Mr. Falcons, that fight drew that much betting attention.
I was just disappointed. I mean, as much as I love and respect Amanda Nunes, I was hoping she'd lose just when I saw that bet because what a jackass betting $1 million. on MMA. But anyway, I'm not surprised. Mr. Falcon's moment comes courtesy of the homie Chatri Sityodtong and one championship. Now, they didn't necessarily do anything this time, but the aforementioned John Nash at Bloody Elbow report was released today, going into some of the finances of the Singapore-based promotion. They have now recorded, they themselves have officially recorded $126 million loss for the year of 2019. So these claims that they make just aren't, clicking up to the reality that we're seeing now. So especially considering that their business has essentially stopped with COVID-19. I know they're trying to rev up to get back into gear, but just very curious what those 2020 numbers are going to look like and what sort of claims we'll get in the meantime. But I'll just say this, hey, maybe they shouldn't have given away that $7.8 trillion to the charity that they raised, but that's another story. So let's go right ahead, and we will move over to the speed bag, and that is when I get to flex my authority on you mofos. So you will each have 10 seconds to answer the questions that I will read off. Now, of course, pay attention because your name just might be getting called at any moment. Now, we're going to start off with our special guest, Rodney. 2 weekends, 2 calf kick finishes. Is this the shape of things to come?
Yeah, I mean, it's much more effective than the kick to the thigh. People are starting to realize that. It's hard to defend. I mean, if you can actually finish a fight with 1 or 2 of those.
Yeah, man, I think fighters have figured it out, and it's a tough thing to defend against. I love when new techniques take hold. So, yeah, enter the leg kick, guys.
It's not even that new. I mean, Douglas Lima's been killing people with that for a couple of years now. Look at MVP. Look at Rory McDonald. It's just getting a little more spotlight.
All right. So, Jay, I will begin with you on the next question. Alexander Gustafsson is coming back from retirement at heavyweight. If he gets past Fabricio Verdum, how far can he go in the higher weight class?
I'm going to answer your question with a question. Am I crazy for thinking that Gus is going to destroy Verdum? I mean, I think he could be a real force at heavyweight. So, yeah, bring on John Jones.
He's 2 fights away from a title shot, just like any heavyweight with name recognition. He's going to go far.
Rodney.
I guess I have the hot take. I think if he gets past Fabricio Verdum, that's as far as he's going to get. A former world champion, the best jiu-jitsu submission guy in MMA.
All right. Now, the final question, Ben, I will begin with you. How many times will Conor McGregor retire before he actually calls it a career?
More times than he actually fights. Like, there will be more retirement announcements than fights, probably 2 to 1.
Rodney.
I don't give a shit. I just want to take this opportunity to once again say that I think it's shameful that the fact that he stole Amanda's spotlight like that, man. It's terrible.
And Jay.
Yeah, that'll make a baker's dozen, Bob. It's just not. It's not. Duh, Bears.
All right, fellas. So now it is my time to get under the spotlight here. So I'm going to put 30 seconds on the clock, and I will begin the clock after reading the first question. So the first question reads, 2 weekends, 2 calf kick finishes. Is this the shape of things to come? According to Jack Slack, this is actually due to poor striking defense in MMA. So when someone catches up and people start checking these things properly like they do in Muay Thai, it's going to be some legs getting broken. Alexander Gustafsson probably can make some moves at heavyweight, but it's such a shallow division to move up in. He's already got the name value. He's got the skill level. He might be able to do something. And how many times will Conor McGregor retire before he calls it a career? It really doesn't matter. How much proper 12 did he have that night? That's probably going to answer the question. So
you should have pointed at your shirt. You should have pointed at your shirt.
Oh yeah. This is a bar that's no longer open in DC that I used to hang out at. It's a cool little spot too. A nice brewery in there. I like that. But anyway, fellas, so I know you've all been looking forward to the mega fight this weekend, and that's Jessica Eye versus Cynthia Calvillo in the main event for a UFC Fight Night card at the Apex Center. So what other fights on this card are worth mentioning? I'm going to give you each an opportunity to highlight one card and one fight off the card. And I will start with you, Rodney. What is one fight on this card that you want to give a little bit of shine to?
What's another fight on the card? Damn, bro.
All right.
You caught me.
Jay, what is a fight you want to highlight on this card?
You know, Charles Rosa versus Kevin Aguilar could be a fun scrap, but when Andre Fili is the most experienced fighter on the card, we have issues with how they're making these cards. I mean, well, I guess I'll put it this way: if the MMA community is dumping on this card, just trashing on it because it's awful and poorly put together, doesn't that almost guarantee it's going to be a banger?
Probably. That's normally how this formula works out. Like 250 was getting trashed and ended up being a fantastic card. So Ben, in fact, you know what? Because this is a pretty shallow card, and you know I know you've done a deep dive on this, but the better question probably to ask is, unless you're doing fight night duties, which I don't think you are. I'm sure Jay, you're doing play-by-play. Ben, are you watching this live?
Yeah, I'm going to watch it live. I'm going to volunteer to at least score, and then I'll kind of, tweet through the thing from my own Twitter, maybe retweet it from the Sherdog account if I think I'm funny. But yeah, no, I'll watch this because, like you say, this is the one that sneaks up on you, and you realize, 6 fights in that 5 of them have been complete bangers.
All right, Rodney, I'm sure you're going to be there at the Big Center.
No, I have drill this weekend, but no, I was actually sitting here looking at this card and going, man, what is everybody talking about? This card's fucking badass. Then I realized I was looking at Blades versus Volkov. Bro, hey, listen, but I always preach this, man. You can never write off a card before it actually happens. And yeah, some people did. 250 was amazing, dude. I was so blessed to be there. And yeah, I won't actually be there for this one, but I'll tell you, we just talked about how exciting the bantamweight division is right now. There's some potential there. We got Jordan Espinosa and Mark De La Rosa. Mark De La Rosa hasn't really made a big name for himself, but I know him from Texas, so he was a prospect when I moved out here to Las Vegas. To see him kind of transition into UFC, he's a guy I've kept an eye on. Andre Fili always puts on an awesome fight. So, there's your featherweight division, Jay, and then you have Ray Borg, who can never seem to make 25. Finally, is going to say, at least for the interim, is going to say, hey, let's go ahead and just do 35. So, Borg just keeps getting better. I would not be surprised to see him come out there and put on an excellent performance. So that could be a sleeper fight. But for me, the co-main event, in all seriousness, all bullshit aside, like Marvin Vettori is one guy that just hits like a truck, man. You cannot he's just never in a bad fight. And, dude, I don't know, man. Let's see where he's at right now. So, he's a guy, look, the last time he lost was a split decision to Israel Adesanya, and he's the only person that I have seen give Izzy any kind of freaking problems, like at all. I don't know if it's just his timing or just the fact that he moves forward and just throws absolute bombs. But, yeah, man, he freaking, beat Cesar Vejeda, Andrew Sanchez, 2-fight win streak. Yeah, that's one to look out for.
So I think I'm not sure if I'm going to end up watching this live or not. It's going to be one of those times where it's going to be hard for me to justify it to my wife to have another 6-hour marathon in front of the TV with a screaming infant. So I don't know. I'm going to try to get these snarky tweets off though. So
and you're going to probably get on the damn
broadcast too. Yeah.
I did make the broadcast last time. I was like, wow, they picked the one like non-profane. The one tweet that I didn't criticize UFC, like, wow, they sifted through that and they found something. So, we'll see if I can do it again. Probably not because I'm too negative. So anyway, that's going to do it for this edition of Unleashed. Thanks once again to the homie Rodney for jumping on the program. You can catch his work at Cageside Press. Definitely looking forward to that op-ed about the COVID-19 protocols that the UFC has been putting on there. Rodney, I didn't see what you just did there. I couldn't see you at all.
My screen went blank.
Nobody there.
So, of course, Jay and Ben, you can find their work on Sherdog.com. You can find my work on The Body Lock. as well as MMA on Point. And check out some of my old work on Sherdog as well. So anyway, oh yeah, I got a column for my MMA news that I don't know. It might be out now. I don't know. If Kristen, if she did the transcript or not, I'm not sure. Yeah, but we did that, so it should be out. But anyway, like, share, subscribe, tell a friend to tell a friend, tell that friend to tell 10 more friends. And of course, you know what you got to do. Stay beautiful, stay positive, stay socially distanced, and yes, stay sexy. I'll see you when I see you. Peace.